Good evening. Welcome to episode number 7, season 2 of Leader's Edge. Tonight, we have a special guest who will talk about how Agile transformed companies won amidst the crisis. He is chairman of the Human Resources Group of the World Bank's Vietnam Business Forum, representing chambers of commerce to the government on policy advocacy. His social enterprise creates artificial intelligence machines, learning careers for people with disabilities, and is a global impact portfolio member of the World Bank's Solutions for Youth Employment Consortium. Previously, he worked for PwC and for multinational corporations in global HR leadership roles at head office level. He is judging many global business competitions, including the United Nations Generation Unlimited Youth Challenge, the United Nations Health Prize, and the Vietnam HR Awards. Ladies and gentlemen, here is Mr. Colin Blackwell. Welcome back. Welcome to the second part of Colin's interview, Becoming a Transformed Agile Business.
Okay, thank you. So last week we looked a little bit about the concept of change and how it's really speeded up. But this now we're looking specifically at businesses. What does it mean for businesses in practical, pragmatic terms? So firstly, let's see how technology fits in with the whole thing. And we think we know it, but let's try and look at it from some different angles. So technology enhances human ability. It's not competing with us if we get it right. So along the top here, you're familiar with the phrase a horsepower. It's the strength, you normally talk about car strength, how strong the engine of a car is. But literally, a horse is 1 horsepower, and a person without technology is 1 person power if they're just using the intelligence extender of a pen and paper. But if you take that same person off the horse and put them in a car, that car is hundreds of horsepower. And the same, if you put that person, take away that pen and paper and put them on a smartphone with access to all the information in the world, then they are hundreds of person power. So that's the kind of parallel. So a person becomes a lot more powerful when combined with the technology that's now available. And how does this apply to companies? So I'm just a little bit of a historical, look back. So back in the age of the pharaohs, you have this famous image of the pharaoh sitting there with thousands or hundreds of thousands of workers and pointing to how to build the pyramids. So to be powerful, you needed loads of people. Now, as the Industrial Revolution went through, you needed machines and people to become rich. So, Henry Ford had factories, and this is a picture of, thousands of workers. And so to be rich, you would need that. But now, in the age 4.0 of the internet, you don't need thousands of people because, as we just saw, the internet is the power of thousands of people. So our friend Bill Gates there, he doesn't need thousands of people, he needs loads of AI power. And actually the same goes for us. This suddenly means we don't need hundreds of millions of dollars to build a factory, to run a big business. We can go on the cloud to existing solutions, and this is the great opportunity that's coming out of it. It's kind of democratized the whole thing, which is great. So it's a different way of looking at how technology can use us. Remember, this is a transformational jump. It's not like in the past. And what about automation? I mean, we looked at before the kind of the risk to people's jobs, and what does AI and automation mean? Company, we've ended up partnering a lot with Amazon, and again, this is just the opportunity afforded in the new age. We're a tiny company, but a couple of my colleagues worked out how to use one of their new things called Honeycode. And this basically, in a company, you've got your big automation central systems like ERP systems like SAP, something like that. But you've got loads of things around the periphery where you've got emails going, you've got things on spreadsheets, you've got offline processes. And Honeycode basically takes all of those and sticks them to your core process. But instead of those automation steps taking months and a big team of people, you can do it in a day because it's no code. Anyone can do it. It's completely idiot-proof to use. So we go around finding these peripheral tasks and automating them. So the company can do it faster, but it means people lose their jobs as that happens. And then on their big cloud intelligence systems, where there are human tasks, which are pure human skills needed, so mechanical to ground truth, and we're working with them on these kind of things. So they automate much larger processes and globalize them and really accelerate existing automation. So we're the bad guys. We're the guys removing those old repetitive process jobs. That's us. And this is also why I'm trying to do the good turn of explaining to people to give them a chance of what the new human tasks are. So what does it mean in practice? So we do a lot with technology. And I remember even 5 years ago, the old process of where it's difficult to find people to do technology was, there'd be an opportunity, or a company says, a client says, we need technology to do this. So the difficult bit, you'd have to tell the computer to do that, you'd need to write tens of thousands of lines of code. There was a shortage of people to do it. It was very labor intensive, it would take months, and then the computer would do it. But now, the new way on the top line there, you see, you still identify the problem, but to tell the computer to do it is dead simple. You're literally telling the computer in plain English, whereas it would have taken 10,000 lines, it now takes 50 lines that anyone can do. But the problem is, you need people with the human skills at the beginning to understand, let's say, the client. The client says, okay, they're trying to sell furniture down e-commerce channels to Americans. You have to, in your head, imagine what that involves, what kind of communication is it, what kind of imagery. Because putting that on the computer is drag and drop, it's simple. But you need the human skills up the front. So the shortage has now moved to those front-loaded human skills. They're called business analysts, there's loads of words for it. But it's moved within the space of even 5 years, and that's now gone crazy fast with the pandemic. And if you multiply that across loads of people, so you've got those people who have the legacy skills, right? So they have the old process skills and things like that. Now, remember that we had 20% of people can adapt fast and 80% can't. Now, that means within your workforce, you've got some people who are adding value, others who are actually destroying value. So that one we had before about the horsepower and the people power. So up the top of this list, you've got humans doing exactly what they need to do, controlling and leveraging technology. And they're like, not superhumans, but very effective humans, let's say. And then, okay, you've got people who are using technology okay, but it's a bit passive, they're not really pushing it. But that's still okay. But if you've got people who, they're very proud that they can memorize and do routine tasks, and they're doing stuff manually that the computer could do, you're wasting time, especially now during the pandemic. You may not have the cash resources as a company to be inefficient like that. But also being human nature, some people get very threatened. They're like, well, if that nasty computer's taking my job, I'm fighting that computer and will actually be disrupting things. That's actively destroying value. And those people in a pandemic, it's an unforgiving business environment out there, they'll take you down. So, you really have to kind of think about this range of people you may have within an organization. But let's, explore some of this new logic around ecosystem. So imagine something like you need to recruit staff, or you need to have some people to do things. Now, these green ones on the left is the old way. You'd either have an employee or you get a supplier to do it, which is fine. That could be the right solution. But what about all the new ways you could do? So you could, let's say, do an alliance with a business partner. You could outsource it. You could let the computer do it through automation, or you could give it to a freelancer. So there are loads of different ways. And actually, if you're cash strapped, need to do things in a hurry, then the traditional employee may be the worst option. But if it's your go-to option just because you're used to doing that, you're going to have a problem competing with someone who's more dynamic. And this is like agile. This is agile thinking, what it actually means in practice. So, let's use an example here. So Microsoft Philanthropies, they're using the same logic as myself. They're creating a lot of this automation, but also realize its impact on society. So they were doing some studies about artificial intelligence. How many people in the world can actually handle it? So there's only about 300,000 people in the world who know how to ask a question and understand an answer properly with an artificial intelligence. Everyone has access to them if they wanted to. It's cloud, you just log on and talk to the AI, but very few people can actually do that. So half or more than half of those people are taken up by the top companies like Microsoft, but Amazon, Apple, Google, and you see the hundreds of billions of dollars those guys are putting in on AI research. So they've got, let's say, at least half, maybe 200,000 of those 300,000 people are already locked into those companies. But there's an estimated 4 million job openings for AI out there. So there's 100,000 people to go amongst 4 million jobs. So, of course, the salaries will go up. So some people have been paid up to $1 million a year on this, and they could be anywhere in the world. And it's quick to learn this, but people can't get their heads around it. But if you just try and recruit those people, it's not going to work. You're up against impossible competition. So what do? Well, this is an experience we had. I saw a newspaper article recently. Amazon had a few jobs offered in India, and there were 300,000-400,000 people applied for those jobs because everyone's thinking the old-fashioned traditional way of fixed jobs. But Amazon and Google, obviously they're the biggest companies in the world because they're smart and they've got their head around agile. And this is it in action. They know they can't get regular employees from down the road. So how do they do it? They have a problem to solve. So they launch a new AI platform and they need people to perfect it for them. So they open it to the public. They just say, look, anyone can come onto the beta version of it, try it out, tell us your ideas. And my colleague Paul, he works from home down the road here in Vietnam, and he loves playing with these things on a Sunday. It's this idea of a good fun on a Sunday is building neural networks and playing with AI. But he was passionate about this, one of the new Amazon things. He really got into it. And after a while, they sent him a note saying, oh, look, for August, you're one of our top 5 contributors globally. Now, he was working for Amazon effectively, and that was the selection process. It's not a traditional job, it's not an interview, but they could only see, he's the guy at the bottom there, Paul Bapu, but the others, you can't even see the person's name or where they are, but it doesn't matter. The person can solve the problem. So there's a virtual team. And then they didn't ask who are you. They're like, welcome, join the conversation, help us, fine. So this is the ultra agile way that people like Amazon are running in practice. So, it's back to basics thinking. So Amazon, they're like, okay, the old way doesn't work anymore, but what were we trying to achieve? We need a person who can solve this AI problem. What options are available? The traditional recruitment way isn't available. What is? We make it like a competition. We open it up. And you can watch the most successful companies in the world because a lot of people are scared of change and would say, well, if I did that, what would happen? Well, look what happened to Amazon and Google and Facebook. Their share price shot up and their revenue shot up during the pandemic. So just copy those guys, So keep informed of these new changes. Question the old assumptions you have and be flexible to change. So, this is the pattern I saw in the Vietnam HR Awards. And we had some of the biggest, best, most famous Fortune 500 companies in there. And I can't mention names because we haven't announced the winners yet. And a lot of these big famous companies actually were failing. Because the first thing I was asking these big famous companies was, did you increase your market share because of the pandemic? And a lot of them said, oh no, we just kind of muddled through and didn't die. I said, not good enough. And here's the pattern. All of those companies that were doing well said, we've just been through digital transformation, we're already agile, we're already using these ecosystems and platforms. And all of those, they accelerated the transformation, and HR completely changed. I mean, I asked them, you know, what you're describing of what the HR person did, is that HR? And they're like, we don't know, it kind of involved people, it was commercial, it needed to do, so we did it. And I said, well, is your job now different? They're like, yeah, of course, we're never going to go back to the old way. We're completely different in what we do. But in the other ones, you know, you have these traditional companies, they were using the old systems, which were fine 2 years ago, or even 1 year ago, but they had these very inflexible hierarchies, processes, and a simplistic thinking. And they just got knocked like anything, the poor companies. You know, they couldn't understand why, what had happened. They're hoping it would go back to normal. And by the time they're finished waiting, their agile competitors taking their customer away from them. It's not coming back. That happens even at a national level. The best companies here in Vietnam, we were taking tasks out of Germany, out of America. They're not going back because we're very good at what we do here, you know? So this is, you know, what I could say, when COVID hit, these modern companies, it moved away from being, you know, we were talking about transformation in 2019, is it a buzzword? What's it actually mean? But now, actually, when it became real, the pandemic hit, we found out what it meant and what the value was. It was real dollars, it was real jobs, it was real staying alive even as a company. So that's, you know, what it meant. So we can see how rapid change is, how transformational it is. But then if you understand that link between people and technology and the logic, this new logic, these new companies, you know, because they didn't have these fixed costs, they could adjust. Because they didn't have fixed structures, they could expand, they could do something completely different. There was nothing holding them back. So that's the bottom line, I suppose. The moral of the story was that exactly this. These modern companies are perfect in 2020, and I've really seen it again and again and again. It's a definite pattern now.
Wow. Thank you. Thank you, Colin. Fascinating. I'm just, okay, let me see if I got this right. In summary, the way to succeed today is being able to collaborate beyond borders, and of course, adaptability, really agile. I mean, you know, you do it quick or others will do it ahead of you.
Yes.
I'm just curious, Colin, your social enterprise where your advocacy, in fact, is using artificial intelligence to help people with disabilities. Did you create this before the crisis or after the crisis?
Yeah, I mean, we were one of these lucky people. We'd done this before the crisis, and we'd actually moved everything to remote working back last year because disabled people, it's very difficult for them to move around into an office. And quite by accident, we just started offering remote work and remote training, and everybody said yes to it. So all the people I have working for me, I've never met them, I don't need to. You know, it just, for its own logic, got there already. So when the crisis hit and everyone needed to work from home, the lockdown, we were already doing it. It was no change to us at all. You know, so we were more lucky than anything else. We'd got there by accident, you know, already. But then we could explain to other people how, you know, it's not just the technology, but also things like how do employees form online communities? How do you keep morale, motivation, these kind of communication going on online forums? And lots of them very young and they're very chatty. And we could already see that happening. So we could actually point other companies in the right direction.
You see, learning is an eternal quest and with never ending and limitless vistas.